Hello, hello, hello. This is Helen Thomas and the CDFM study group. All right, today we're going to be reviewing CDFM Module 4, Competency 4, Life Cycle Sustainment. So we have to have a plan in place once we develop that capability gap, whatever it's going to take to fill the capability gap, then we have to have a sustainment plan. So who do you think will provide the plan of what that sustainment of that item looks like? Program manager, right? So when it comes to module 4, when in doubt, 99% of the time, the answer is program manager. Unless you're dealing with money, then it's the resource manager. So what it says on page 4.4.1 in the introduction, in the middle of that paragraph, it says the program manager is responsible for providing the needed product support capability. It's about pretty much the plan throughout the life cycle of that equipment. That program manager in the beginning, it's cradle to grave. So they need to know up front what is going to take to sustain that item. So when do we consider sustainment? On page 2, in that I pointed out to the bullet, and then I pointed out where it says it in the actual study guide. In the first bullet, it says life cycle sustainment planning is considered during the material solution analysis. Which phase is the material solution analysis in acquisition? It is actually the first phase. So in the beginning of the start of the process, you're already thinking about sustainment. A life cycle sustainment plan, so the official plan, must be prepared in milestone B. Why milestone B? Because everything else before that is preliminary. We're doing testing, we're trying to figure out which capability works, we're trying to reduce risk in technology. And then when we get to milestone B, let me slow down so I can pronounce my words. When you get to milestone B, that is where you need all the actual data, all the final numbers, because the milestone decision authority must approve the program to go to a full-fledged acquisition program. So on page 443 in that paragraph under the diagram, you see where it says a life cycle sustainment plan is prepared in milestone 4, milestone B. So that means you're not waiting until milestone B, but you're preparing it at the end of technology maturation risk reduction or technology development phase. Then you want to have the life cycle sustainment plan prepared, because this is what you're going to have to know for the acquisition exam, is when do these activities occur, which milestone, which phase, where do things happen. Let's see what else I have. So whenever you develop a capability on 445, what this is simply telling you is these are all the considerations, that we don't want to build something that only one vendor can support it. Only one type of equipment can be used, or support equipment can be used. We want to think of interoperability. How are we going to support the product? The data management. If you have to use technology, how are you going to manage the data? So all of that is part of the configuration process. On page 446, the third bullet from the bottom, configuration management. What is it? It's the process for establishing and maintaining the consistency of a product's physical and functional attributes with its design and operational information throughout its life cycle. So you think about at the different stages of that equipment, are there any updates, service plans that has to be put in place to ensure that throughout the entire life cycle of that product, that is actually still producing all the way till the end when you get rid of that equipment? So configuration management is important for you to know. Let's move on to page 447, pre-acquisition versus acquisition. So remember, an acquisition program does not begin until milestone B. So without even reading anything, when does pre-acquisition happen? Material solution analysis, milestone A, technology development. or for the newer study guide, technology maturation. So pre-acquisition presents the first, so it's just explaining what pre-acquisition is. And I think later on it goes into the milestone. Let me see if it says it in here. Under the acquisition one, it says the system formally enters the acquisition process at milestone B. This is stuff you already or should know because we covered this also in module 2. So EMD is the engineering and manufacturing and development phase. A key life cycle sustainment emphasis during EMD is to ensure operational supportability. So what it's telling you is you have the plan in milestone B so that you can apply the plan as you're going through the production stage and you're testing those items to make sure that it is according to the plan and that the plan is still valid throughout the process. So pre-acquisition versus acquisition. So far as when it happens. Let's see. Page 448, sustainment or operations and support. That first bullet, post interoperable capability in product support strategy assessment. And when you read through all of that, it says these reviews occur normally every 3 to 5 years. That's what I want to point out from this one, is you must have these reviews again to review the data, to review the performance of that equipment, to ensure that everything is still on target. At the bottom of page 8, this is the same ICD that we talked about in JCITS, Joint Capabilities, Integration and Development Systems. The joint staff all sit on the Joint Requirements Oversight Council. They conduct an analytical process to determine, based on their mission, what is required of the Department of Defense and the military. Then the JCITS analytical process is to determine any capability gaps that they have in their resources. So once the JROC completes their JCITS analysis, they publish their recommendation, their findings in an ICD, initial capabilities document. So that's mentioned there again. So a lot of this stuff you see me jumping page to page because once you read through the material, you're like, oh, this is the same stuff that we covered in module 2, or we've covered it earlier in this section. So I'm not going to spend any energy going over that section again. Because if you look at the terms on page 9, analysis of the alternative, that's what you're doing in material solution analysis. You're analyzing different courses of actions in the analysis of the alternative. Technology development strategy. When you come up with the key performance parameters, what are the technical things that equipment is supposed to be able to do? So in order for us to reduce technology risk, and so forth, we do that in the technology development phase. We talked about acquisition program baseline. Who produces it? Who develops the baseline? Program manager, right? Because they know about the programs more. They come up with the standards. They come up with the objectives. We just talked about acquisition, pre-acquisition versus acquisition strategy. So if they say acquisition strategy, well, when does the acquisition program begin? It begins at milestone B. So that means you have to have a strategy in milestone B. So you have a plan before you start the process, and then your strategy begins after milestone B is approved, your acquisition strategy is initiated. All right, that's all I have on that section. All right, so let's move over to page 4, let's see, glasses. 4.4.13, what do I have? PBL, which is performance-based logistics. The definition of PBL is on the second paragraph on page 4.4.13 that says the essence of performance-based, what we're looking for is performance of that equipment, not necessarily what type of equipment. The ICD says this equipment, whatever you develop, need to be able to do XYZ. meet these standards, meet these objectives. So performance-based logistics is buying the performance outcome, because whatever the end result you build, whatever it is, it's going to take to give me that outcome, not the individual parts it takes and repair action it takes to develop that equipment. So performance-based logistics. If you look at it that way, it'll be easier for you to remember. You're buying performance. So on page 4415, they have performance-based agreement. If we're looking for performance, then we have an agreement. So the warfighter, let me see if I can orient you to the diagram here. In the middleman is the program manager. So the specifics required item for the warfighter is communicated to the program manager. Then the program manager works where it gets the buy packet together, performance work statement together, and then they work with support provider, who's going to be able to provide the equipment that the warfighter needs. Then so it's like a contract between everybody and the program manager. And the program manager job is to be the middle person to ensure that the warfighter has what they need from cradle to disposal, from acquisition to disposal. So these sections are kind of small. All right, so I'm not going to put these videos together. I'm going to leave them separate where it makes it easier so you can see this is a shorter section. And then as you go through, you'll be able to focus more on the other things that I didn't cover. So the preferred PBL contracting approach is the use of long-term contract with incentive tied to performance. So program manager enters into performance-based agreement with the user, which is the warfighter, and also the program manager enters a contract with the commercial activity or contractor. All right, so I'm going to end for competency 4 here for module 4, and then I'll pick up with another video for competency 5. All right, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page. This is CDFM Module 4, Competency 4 only. We'll have another video for Competency 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then collectively, all 10 competencies will be reviewed for CDFM Module 4. Make sure that you go ahead and take your exams because they're going to be updating this 2011 study guide for CDFM Module 4 quite shortly, as I was part of that process. So I can't tell you any particular specifics, but go ahead and take your exams now on the current material because I don't know what the changes will be in the future. All right, this is Helen Thomas and the CDFM study group. Please subscribe to our YouTube page so that YouTube will advertise our CDFM channel more and more as people are looking for resources to help with CDFM. This is Helen Thomas and the CDFM study group. I'll see you guys again next time.